Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Monster by Sergey Belsky, translated by Denis Lepenkov, introduced by Valeria Kornisenko, narrated by Stephen Bell Davies. Prologue. "Guys, stop lagging behind!" the captain ordered the trio that was trying to find something interesting. "Coming," one of the men responded, and let out a sad sigh. "Stop acting like those greedy dwarves," the captain shouted reproachfully. He was a hefty man in steel armor that was dotted with numerous scratches. "There's enough loot for everyone, so don't dig through every pile of rocks." "Yes, sir," the warriors in less impressive armor shouted. They had worse equipment overall, prompting them to look for something better. They didn't find anything, unfortunately. The group of soldiers had been going through the underground tunnels for 2 hours already, and hadn't encountered any serious resistance from the monsters, thanks to the detachment's teamwork, well-practiced tactics, and a great deal of training. The monsters in this part of the dungeon were relatively weak. Really, how could human-sized beetles ever harm a strong warrior that surpassed them in every way? That's right, they couldn't. That's how the monsters ended up being slaughtered by the hundreds, while protecting their even weaker brethren. The party made sure to exterminate all of them as well, so that the monsters wouldn't hit them from behind later on. In this dungeon, the bosses would call on almost all the mobs that hadn't been killed in the caves, and then it would become very difficult to deal with all of them. That's why they had to do the tedious cleanup. Sometimes the smaller mobs would drop something interesting, but it happened so rarely that many were skeptical of the claims and didn't even expect to get anything. But the trio of warriors didn't intend to give up. The cave was vast, and it included quite a number of levels with many bosses throughout, as well as common mobs. There were so many kinds of them that players were still finding new types. However, not every raid could clear the dungeon, and most were limited to only clearing the first level. As was shown in the dungeon's status, it hadn't been completed yet. That was why this dungeon was often stormed by the top guilds, with no success thus far. And now the first level was being farmed by the small clans. "This way," one of the trio shouted. "We've got a couple of the more serious mobs here." Carcant Warrior, level 39. Carcant Keeper, level 37. "A warrior and a healer," the second one summarized, intercepting its sword with both hands and looking at the tall mantis-like creatures with refined bodies and angular heads that looked similar to a human's. "Okay, let's warm up." The keeper, whose antenna formed something like a basic hairstyle, moved away, hissed something several times, and was almost hit by the third fighter. But the beetle warrior managed to repel the blow. "This one's good," the attacker grinned. "Check it out, guys," the first warrior said in surprise. "They're protecting that small beetle." @ $, number sign, caret sign, and symbol @ level 0. "That little beetle's kind of bugged," the other one frowned. "Gotta do him in." "That's exactly what we'll do," the third nodded, and his sword glowed with dim light, after which, with a burst of energy, he threw the beetle warrior back. Meanwhile, the second one scored a hit using a sweeping attack. The keeper squeaked plaintively, clutching the stump of her foreleg to her thorax. The first warrior stuck his sword into the rising Carcant, but the bug became enraged upon seeing the other two trying to kill the keeper, and despite the damage he'd taken, rushed over to help her. "Ugh! Damn!" One of the attackers had blood on his face. "A skilled moron, despite his low level." "Not for long," the warrior chuckled indifferently, cutting off the head of the beetle in a single powerful blow. The body of the Carcant warrior slowly fell to the ground, coating the floor in disturbingly red blood. "It's time to finish up, otherwise RL will kick our asses," the first said, and plunged the sword into the body of the keeper several times until the plaintive squeaking stopped. "For some reason this buggy isn't running away," said the player indifferently, pulling the sword out of the keeper's body. Blood gushed out from her multiple wounds. "Well, he is bugged," their colleague shrugged, and with one blow destroyed the zero-level mob who tried to attack the players at the last moment. Chapter 1. Small Beetle, the Kinsman, the Rippers. What a headache. Everything around me is spinning and won't stop. Why do I feel so ill? I guess I'm lying on the floor, but I can't see a thing. It's hard to breathe. What's happening to me? I've never taken anything like that before. Wait, what did I take? It had become cold somehow, and I was hungry. Hold on. Something's wrong with my thoughts. I can't concentrate on anything. This went on for quite a long time. Okay, maybe not too long, but everything felt very strange. And at some point I opened my eyes. Everything appeared to be dark gray in color. Cold stones lay inert all over the floor, while droplets of water fell from the ceiling, splashing loudly on the surface of the stones. From somewhere off to the side came strange gnashing sounds, and I decided to go over there and see where they were coming from. As soon as I tried to get up, I tripped on my own legs and fell back down. There were 6 of them, sharp but small. I experienced a vague feeling of wrongness at that. I couldn't stand up the normal way. It took at least an hour for me to finally learn how to cope a little with my limbs, after which I slowly headed toward the sounds. It was hard to control my legs, and my heartbeat was somehow wrong, erratic, while my breathing felt too labored. I kept stumbling as I walked, running out of energy, chest heaving as I fought for air. If I paused to rest for a while, everything became normal, or, well, at least almost normal. Soon enough, I just started counting as I walked. 1, and I moved the front legs. 2, the rear ones. Using the simple method, I eventually reached my destination. A small pebble was shining on the ground, slightly diluting the black and gray colors of the surrounding space, revealing the silhouettes of 2 strange creatures in the pitch-black darkness. They were somehow similar to a praying mantis, and had 6 legs, as I did, but the 2 front ones were slightly different and ended with 3 claws shaped like fingers. Perhaps they could even hold something with these, unlike me. I looked at my own legs once again and realized that holding anything would be hard for me. They had very refined bodies of a light gray color. Their big eyes seemed as if they were the color of emeralds, but my eyesight apparently didn't allow me to see the color properly. So to me, they were an odd gray. The black, round pupils of the girl focused on me, and after grooming the antenna on her head, she tried to tell me something through her small jaws. Seeing that I didn't understand her, she straightened her hair, covering her slightly triangular face and thin neck again, and excitedly turned to a mighty warrior who was bigger than her and much more powerful. The warrior grinned kindly and made several gestures with his forelegs to calm her down. After some time the keeper turned to me again, and to my surprise I found that I was now able to understand her strange speech. "Do you understand me?" The beetle girl's eyes were looking at me with pity. "Yes," I managed to get out in a strangled voice. My throat ached and my face tightened. "Calm down." The warrior put his hand on the keeper's shoulder. "He just came into the world and can't properly perceive it yet. Remember what the highest said. His consciousness must stabilize." "Do you even know what that means?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "No, but it sounds very convincing." The warrior grinned back at her, which made the keeper sigh deeply. Cytrilt, level 39. Treerlil, level 37. I saw their names above them and something about levels. All of this was rather strange, and I didn't understand what was happening at all, but I didn't feel as if I was in any danger from these creatures. On the contrary, I felt something akin to a fondness for them, something warm. My heartbeat was much calmer, and I'd stopped gasping for breath. "Come here, dear Tessella." The beetle girl beckoned to me, and I approached her. Hooray, he understands. Treerlil jumped with joy, lifting me in her arms, which were hard like stone, but still felt a bit warm. "We had to go through a lot before you finally came into this world, child," the man said kindly, looking at me and the keeper. "Tessella, hide," Cytrilt suddenly said after a while. "Treerlil, get behind me. The Rippers are coming." "For what?" Tears appeared in the girl's large eyes. "Why are you doing this to us, gods?" "Tessella." Her gaze was filled with such sorrow that it made me feel uncomfortable. "Hide, and don't let yourself be killed." She gently put me back on the ground and pushed me slightly forward. Soon strange creatures appeared. Their shells glittered in the bright light coming from the thin sticks. It was hard to look in their direction, but I could clearly make them out before I averted my eyes. These creatures had only 4 limbs. They walked on 2 of them, and then the other 2 they held sticks with light and strange, sharp claws. One of them shouted something to the others, and after a brief discussion, the trio headed toward us. "Tessella, run!" the keeper shouted, and almost took a blow from a sharp claw, but the beetle warrior was able to repel it. The creature jumped aside and turned to its mate. "That little beetle's kind of bugged," said another one, pointing at me with a sharp claw. "Gotta do him in." One of the 2-legged pushed back the beetle warrior with one powerful blow, and the second, twisting its claw around itself, hit both of my parents. Treerlil pressed the stump of her claw to herself, getting covered in a dark red color, which stood out sharply against the gray tones of the rest of the place. The first creature prodded Cytrilt with its claw, but he became furious upon seeing a couple of 2-legged trying to kill the keeper, and rushed over to help her. He managed to touch his foreleg to the gray head of the monster, and I saw that red color again. However, what came next horrified me. The enemy struck out so powerfully with its claw that it beheaded the beetle warrior. The other 2 focused on Treerlil, stabbing their claws into her. "Run, Tessella!" Her voice was getting quieter. "Run." Everything around me turned red, my heart beating with incredible strength. I felt angry. No, I was furious as I saw Treerlil's eyes glazing over, the same eyes that had looked at me so tenderly a while ago. "It's time to finish up, otherwise RL will kick our asses," the monster said something, all the while sticking its claw into the keeper's body repeatedly. "For some reason this buggy isn't running away," the monster said in his nasty voice, pulling the claw out of Treerlil's body. Blood gushed out of the wound, painting everything around it in that damned color. "Well, he is bugged." His foul voice sounded again, and I rushed at him, but scarlet splashes struck my eyes. A severe pain pierced my entire body, and then darkness enveloped everything around me. Chapter 2. Tessel the Stats, Evolution. I don't know how long I was in the darkness, but at some point I realized that I was able to open my eyes. Once again, the world was made up entirely of gray tones. There were no monsters in their glittering shells, whereas the bodies of my family still lay side by side in puddles of red liquid. My heart ached, and I went to them, not knowing what to do. At some point, I just lay down near them and started to think. About 10 minutes later, a bright window appeared in front of my eyes. It hurt my eyes to even look at it because it was so bright. Your status. Character name, @ dollar symbol, hashtag, caret, and symbol, @ race, monster, class, unknown, level, 0, experience, 0, health, 1 of 1, energy, 0 of 0. Do you want to change your name? Yes or no? What is this? Levels and other nonsense again? The name? Something unclear was displayed there. Now, this isn't my name. Trillil called me something else. Tesseller, I hissed through my jaws, and my throat started aching again. The character's name, Tesseller. Okay, what is this level thing? How do I find out? As soon as I thought about it, a hint with some pleasant text came up in front of my eyes. Your level is the feature that shows the degree of your development. My eyes hurt from looking at the bright window. Why can't it be a little smaller? The letters could be bigger as well. Again, the instant I thought of it, the message window changed its color to black, and the text transformed into a flattering, beautiful font of a dark red color, which made me recall my family and the monsters that had killed them. Letting out a sigh, I thought about how I needed to know about the rest of it, too. Experience is the parameter that grows through the destruction of your enemies, doing tasks, the acquisition of new knowledge, the use of skills, etc. Experience can be invested into anything you choose, an object, a part of your body, and everything else that you can come up with, apart from your stats. I wondered what I could think about next, but my brain wasn't working that well yet, and my thoughts were still scrambled. Was it possible to upgrade the brain? I should try to do that as soon as I get some experience. And as for my health, well, it seemed pretty obvious. But what is this energy, and what is it needed for? Energy is the parameter that increases depending on your internal structure and is necessary for the use of several unusual skills. Well, that's a bit vague. Whatever, I'll see to it later. The only thing left to ask now is what a class is, and why I'm a monster. Class is the parameter that determines the direction of your development. Monster is the most numerous and diverse race in Rain. It includes so many unusual representatives that it would take more than 1,000 years to compile a complete list of all the monsters. The demons can somewhat compete in terms of species diversity. Monsters are the most unusual creatures in the world, and despite their name, which people gave them, can be much more human than any of them. So that was the name of those two-legged creatures? But how do I get stronger? What should I focus on? After having these thoughts, I saw the windows once again pop up before my eyes. Basic stats. Mind, 1. Evolution, 1. Structure, 1. Complexity, 1. Secondary stats. Mobility, 0. Knowledge, 0. Strength, 0. Life, 1. Mind allows you to more intelligently analyze and process the data collected by your sense organs. Evolution, this parameter is responsible for how high the possibility of absorbing and using the parts of other creatures is. Structure, responsible for the stability of your evolution and further development. Complexity, increases the complexity of the available evolutions. Mobility is the parameter that determines the speed of your movement, reaction time, agility, and balance. Knowledge is the parameter that determines to which degree you can develop your intellect and allows you to replenish energy faster. Strength is the parameter that allows you to physically influence the world around you. The larger this parameter, the higher the coefficient of your impact on the surrounding world. Life is the parameter that determines your ability to survive, adapt, and resistance to various types of external influences on your body. Cold, heat, poison, magic, etc. So much information. But at least I have a better idea of what I need to do now. I need to somehow develop my mind and strength in order to defeat monsters like those two-legged. How did I even end up back here? I was killed, and I clearly remember the cold touch of death. And if I'm here, then why are my parents lying dead in front of me? I walked over to Trilil and touched the red puddle with my foreleg. A black window with dark red text popped up. The blood of a Carcant keeper has been absorbed. New development opportunities are available. Received 10 units of experience. What? What is a Carcant? This is Trilil. Why did I get this experience? For absorbing her blood? My heart began to pound wildly once again. I didn't know how to react to this. A part of me kept insisting that what I was doing was wrong. One should not absorb the blood of their family. And yet my mind kept telling me that it would otherwise be impossible to survive and beat the two-legged creatures with long claws. I came up to Cytrilt and dipped my leg into the blood of the warrior as well. The blood of a Carcant warrior has been absorbed. New development opportunities are available. Received 10 units of experience. I looked at my dead parents, feeling bitter and ashamed, and began to examine what new opportunities for development had become available to me. Carcant's hand. Description: a hand with 3 claw fingers that allows you to grab objects. This development unlocks the use of a spike. Stats: strength +1, life +1, health +20. Requirements: mind 1, life 1, evolution 1. Healing gene. Description: creates a structure in your body that directs your energy toward accelerating your regenerative abilities. Stats: mind +2, life +4, health +50, complexity +2, structure +2, evolution +2. Effect: healing. Requirements: level 20, life 10, evolution 5, structure 5. Wow, that's great! Means I can make myself a pair of hands, as my parents had. But how? I should... Yes, that's it. After all, I have the experience, which I need to put into my mind stat, because that's how I'll progress faster. Now, how do I do that? After trying for about 20 minutes, I was finally able to manage it. Your brain is evolving. Now you have an underdeveloped brain. Stats: mind +3. Level up. Current level 2. This was great. I immediately began to think much more clearly, and my thoughts stopped being so chaotic. I immediately figured out how to use the hand. Having activated it, I made the right foreleg slightly transform, and it became like the hands of Trilil and Cytrilt had been. I even moved my little claws around to test them out. But then a very sad thought occurred to me. I couldn't grow a hand on the second foreleg because there weren't enough points for the evolution. I see this means that if I want more body parts for myself, then the requirements change depending on their number. I wonder if I could grow another head. Admittedly, I don't need it. It seems like I won't be able to use the gene for some time, but that's no big deal. I'll just have to make do without it. Then I began to dig a hole. It was hard because I didn't have enough strength, and I constantly had to pause in order to catch my breath. After some time, I was finally able to finish digging the hole and drag the bodies of my parents into it. I'd somewhat overestimated my strength, so it wasn't too deep. Then I covered the bodies carefully with stones. I don't know why I did it, but something in my soul told me that it was the right thing to do. I wanted to scratch their names into a pebble, but nothing worked. The hand was unresponsive, and the claws weren't strong enough. Letting out a deep sigh, I mentally said goodbye to them and set off to explore the world around me. Chapter 3. The Mushrooms The development, too many thoughts. The cave turned out to be very large. There was a whole lot of stone shards everywhere, which hampered my movement. The impenetrable darkness seemed to loom over me from above, which frightened me a little. The entire time I kept fearing that the two-legged would jump out from somewhere and kill me with their claws, but everything was quiet. The only thing that disturbed the silence was the water droplets as they fell onto the stones below. I took one of these shards that strongly resembled a claw and was much stronger than my own with me. It looked very large in my hand, and it was hard to hold, but I felt a little calmer for having it. It's a pity that I cannot grow a second hand. Things would be much easier, I muttered absently. Sometimes the grayness of the cave would be interrupted by the dim light of some mushrooms and plants. I noticed one of these sources of light, and I came closer. It was a small translucent mushroom, glowing with steady, dull turquoise light. This light soothed me, and I wanted to get even closer, but the mushroom grew too high up, and without a second hand, I wouldn't be able to reach it. I looked at its light a bit longer, and then kept going. I wondered why there was no one else around. Was I alone here? I had been wandering around the cave for about 2 more hours before I saw something amazing. A large lake filled with clear water. It was shallow, and its bottom was clearly visible. I came closer and put my hand in the water. Brr, cold. I was thirsty and decided to taste this delicious water. After my thirst had been quenched, I spotted something strange in the lake. It seemed close to the surface. I became curious and went over to look at this little thing. The depth appeared to be much greater than I'd originally thought. I had to plunge completely under the water. At first it was rather cold, but then my body started getting used to it. There was a pebble at the bottom, almost transparent, interspersed with white crystals. I took it in my hand that for some reason started to become unresponsive and hurried back. It got worse with each minute I spent in the water, and I barely managed to get ashore. I had to lie down for half an hour before I felt more or less okay again. I carefully looked at the stone, but the previous feeling of definitely needing it had disappeared. I took a deep breath and threw the trifle back into the lake. I wondered how I could protect myself from the cold. Maybe I need to change my shell. Anyway, why was I thinking about something like that when I didn't even have any experience points? After a while, I felt something strange in my stomach. My mind suggested it was hunger, and then I remembered the luminous mushrooms. The hunger forced me to look for something edible, but there were only stones and water around. After a while, I finally stumbled upon a couple of mushrooms. Their thin, conical caps shone slightly with a greenish light, which caused me some discomfort, but I couldn't stand the hunger pains anymore, and so, without hesitation, I ate them both. A few minutes later I felt ill, and a dark window with red letters on it appeared in front of me again. You are poisoned. Take an antidote. Otherwise you will die within 60, 59, 47 seconds. What kind of antidote? Where do I find it? I yelled as I rushed about, panicking. I never wanted to see that darkness again, but as time went by, I kept getting worse and worse. When I saw the countdown reach 0, my vision was covered in a dark red veil, and I found myself in the darkness once more. I opened my eyes and saw the graves of my parents. Now it was clear that when I died, I would be transferred here. I looked around. Since I've already been that way, let's try the opposite path. It turned out to be much more interesting. Every now and then I could see some strange dark gray pebbles glittering on the walls, and they turned out to be very solid. I also saw a moss that I tried to eat, and surprisingly, I didn't die. Unfortunately, it had no taste. I took a little bit of the moss with me and pressed on. From time to time I encountered dried pools of blood, but there were no bodies.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?